the book obviously came out before the movie. The book came out in like 2008 and the movie came out in 2011. So, I mean, that probably had something to do with it. And back in that sort of era of Hollywood, people were getting cast that looked nothing like the character that they were describing. So like George Clooney, he's Italian, he has Italian ancestry. So for them to cast him as a Hawaiian native, someone whose ancestry dates back to like the very beginnings of Hawaii, that's kind of funny. And then another really similar experience, a really similar thing to that was Emma Stone getting cast as a native Hawaiian in a movie. I can't remember what it was called, but you know, people were in an uproar over that, being like, why did you cast Emma Stone as somebody who's clearly not native Hawaiian? And you know, eventually I think Hollywood has sort of learned from those mistakes, but you know, when you have such heavy hitting actors and actresses, sometimes I guess you just have to, I guess they just decided, you know what, with a name as big as George Clooney, we want him on this movie because obviously people like to watch him on screen. I love George Clooney. I love him as an actor. Ocean's 11 is one of my favorite movies. So, and The Descendants is also a really, really good movie as well.
Yeah, I thought somewhere in the book it said that they didn't look like Hawaiian or something, that they looked like the white part of their family or something, but I can't remember exactly what that was or if it was.
You might be right, Adina, because when I was doing some research, because there's several allusions that is made throughout this book about his ancestry and the King family and everything, and like they've owned land since the 1840s. And then on page 157, he talks about his missionary ancestors. So it's very possible that he actually didn't, you know, his roots aren't actually like native Polynesian, Hawaiian, that they could be the white missionaries that came to the island. I don't know.
Not to defend George Clooney's casting.
I'm trying to think. Oh, did I have it written? Or okay, list of missionaries. When did the missionaries start coming to Hawaii? The first round was 1820. So 1820 were the first round of missionaries. So, you know, it's possible that, yeah, it says here on page 157, I think of my bloodlines progression, our missionary ancestors came to the islands. I didn't finish the rest of that sentence, but yeah, it was my understanding that only native Hawaiians could own land, but perhaps native Hawaiians is a more fluid term when it comes to the missionaries that came to the islands so many years ago. Are they considered native Hawaiians? Not necessarily the Polynesian ancestors that, you know, voyaged and came to Hawaii all those years ago, but it could be just, it could also expand to the Hawaiian missionaries that came as early as the 1820s. So it's possible that that's why he was cast and not, you know, someone who is actually native Hawaiian or Polynesian.
Yeah, she did say that this was like fiction too, so
yeah. Sarah, did you have something you wanted to say?
No, I found that interesting that, well, also I guess too, that was a time where, like you kind of mentioned, that they were hiring a lot of like, just like, this is the actor of the moment and we want them in everything. But it just seemed like maybe having that in there made me think that the author was like also wanting him to be, or just a fan, maybe just a fan.
Just a
But,
fan.
Yeah.
And probably was over the moon when she found out that he
Yeah.
was cast as Matt King. I mean, yeah, who wouldn't be?
What, just to take it a little different direction, one other thing that I found interesting, and maybe it's because they just own the land all over, but like when they were like flying all to the different islands, I was like, how's he just suddenly like have another car there, and then another car he's driving around over there? Like he went to just like pick up, and there was no mention of like going to get the rental or anything like that, just like, oh yep, and then we went and like drove to pick up the other daughter at school and stuff like that. But
Well, the first time they flew, I was like, how did they get there? And then all of a sudden it was like, we're going back to the airport. And I was like, okay. Like,
yeah,
I was like, what? Just kind of skipped that detail.
So wait, was her school was on a different island?
yeah.
I must have missed that.
It was on the big island.
Okay.
It was like all the lava and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And that's like an hour flight because I did that.
Okay,
If you
yeah.
notice my video.
Well, I
or-
mean, it's his personal narration, so perhaps he was just like, I don't need to mention that, but I mean, obviously, as a reader of a book, you do need to mention it. But in terms of, yeah, like going over to the other island to figure out who the person or the man his wife was having an affair with, yeah, that's not really talked about. I mean, obviously he's got family and he's got connections.
I think there he did borrow a car from one of those family members, because I think that was made mention. So then it made me think back to the first trip to pick up the daughter, that I was like, wait a second, he didn't even mention how he got the car there.
There was no information.
Huh. I totally missed that little tidbit of information. So good on you for picking up on that. I was just like, okay, yeah, he's going to pick up his daughter now, and the logistics just figured themselves out, I suppose.
Yeah, and they just got on an airplane. It's weird. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, he has connections and family members all over the place. So it's probably for him as somebody in his specific scenario, all it takes is for him to call somebody and be like, hey, I'm coming. And I don't know, it could be a little bit different for those islanders, like those logistics just sort of work themselves out because they have worked. Maybe he had a car. I don't know. But it's definitely worth mentioning. Sort of an interesting, how did that even happen?
Yeah, there were a lot of interesting how did that happen, I guess, throughout.
how did that happen? Like, why is he the one that has to make all these decisions? But then obviously they talk about that a little bit. So yeah, all right, well, let's get into it. Let's see. So the thing I really wanted to take from this book was the history of Hawaii and the history of land ownership, the history of why things are the way they are in Hawaii, and so different than any other state in the nation. And it does boil down to the landowner rights that they created way back in the day. So when I watched the movie, that does happen, and I was afraid it wasn't going to happen in the book, that it was purely going to be about what to do with Matt King's wife, who is literally she's in a coma and she's probably not going to wake up, and how do you tackle that? And then also learning about the affair. So I was pleasantly surprised to learn that the aspect of the land ownership and what to do with this large chunk of land that he had was sort of an additional subplot to the story. And even though it wasn't the star of the plot. I still think that it had held so much weight to the story. And that was kind of like what I was looking forward to for every time a new bit of information was revealed about this land and what Matt was going to do with it, and meeting with his all of his cousins, and then learning all of the like crazy stuff with Joni and her and the person she was seeing secretly. What was his name? Brian,
yeah.
Brian, and why that was happening. Just sort of really interesting. But obviously the biggest takeaway from this book is the just like the unexpected situations that you find yourself in that you could possibly never even imagine could exist. You know, Matt King, he is married to this woman. She is a thrill seeker. She loves to do these crazy things, and eventually it catches up to her, and she's in a permanent coma, and she's not going to wake up, and Matt has to figure out what to do. And he needs his two girls beside him, and he's sort of like the secondary parent in all of this, and learning how to adjust to a life without his wife. And it's like, I don't know, I really liked the premise of this book and how all of the details got fleshed out through this through first person narration. I thought it was really great. So towards the beginning of the book on page 16, I don't know if your page 16 matches my page 16, but there is a quote, maybe not a quote, but just, you know, obviously Matt's inner thoughts, where he says, "I haven't been the most available parent. I've been in a state of prolonged unconsciousness, but I'm trying to change, and I think I'm doing a good job." You see that, Adina?
It's on page 25 of my book.
Okay, interesting. So I flagged that down because he says that he's been in a state of prolonged unconsciousness while his wife is literally in a coma.
Yeah.
So I wrote down the question, why is he equating his wife's coma to his own life? I thought that was like, I don't know, kind of interesting, a duality sort of. Why is he equating his wife's coma to his own life up until this point? Like, she's been living her life and he's been sort of, I guess, in the background being the secondary parent.
Well, she's been like really living her life and he like hadn't been. So I guess maybe in that way it's like flipped in the experience, but in a bizarre, unexpected way.
Yeah.
Yeah, like up until this point, he's sort of been in autopilot, thinking that his life is great and his wife loves him and they have this great family. I mean, he kind of knows that that's not necessarily true. He has a daughter that's not doing well. He's got a younger daughter who is trying to figure out the world still. But he hasn't been, you know, I'm trying to change and I think I'm doing a good job. I mean, he's starting to realize these things are happening much quicker than I guess maybe he was prepared for.
Yeah, I found it interesting that it was such like a heavy topic and just like heavy family dynamics, it seemed, that it still felt like maybe it was just the setting, like as he was describing it, but like if like a light beach read to me as I was like reading it also, because of the maybe being in that form of narration probably helped too, that it felt like easier, you know, to process. But yeah, I don't know, it was interesting to me that it felt, you know, like I would read it and be like, oh man, but like what a beautiful scenery there is.
Yeah, and I talk about we will talk about that a little bit, sort of the clashing of a beautiful setting with a really kind of heavy topic. So on page or chapter 3, I just said chapter 3. The chapters were really nice and short, which I appreciated. And up in, this is still early in the book. Matt is constantly doubting himself as a father, as a parent figure. I wrote down, Matt clearly thinks he is not a top-notch dad, but this chapter suggests otherwise. I'm not really sure what exactly I'm referring to here, but he does something in this chapter with Scotty, because I don't think Alex has been introduced by this point. But he did something with Scotty, and it's like he's not giving himself enough credit. He actually is a good dad, although he sort of doubts himself. And so, but he says that he's the secondary parent. So why is not giving yourself enough credit something that's maybe common amongst the secondary parents? You've got your primary parent, the parent that, your kid sort of gravitates towards, and if you need to call, they're usually the first person that you're going to call. And then there's the secondary parent who maybe feels a little bit slighted because they are second fiddle to your kids. So obviously he's not giving himself enough credit, but why do you think this is common amongst secondary parents?
I do have one comment about that, because it's unclear, like it says that he's read all these things and he said it's sort of fun, these responsibilities, and I think Joni will be impressed. And he's like talking about the fat and the vaccinations and stuff. But like, when did he start reading about this? Hi, Natalie.
Hi, Natalie.
Hi, everyone. Hello.
Hello.
Like,
Turbin is back. The Turbin is back.
Post workout.
you think that? Sorry.
What?
What were you saying, Adina, about he starts reading?
Yeah, like he says he's read the blogs and learned about this, and he was in an online vaccination chat. And like, is this all stuff he's done in the last like month, or do you think this is stuff he's done all along?
That's I'm not so sure. I wish I had my book to reference it.
Because like it's not clear, I guess.
Or maybe do you
maybe
think
it's recently, because Joni was maybe doing most of that work beforehand, and now he's been thrust into this role, and he's got to do the parent-teacher conferences, and he's got to pick them up from school, or pick up Scotty from school at least. And I mean, he does have the helper who is in the household helping with Scotty and everything. So she might be putting some thoughts in his head, because maybe she was always sort of conversing with Joni beforehand, and now she has to converse with him, and she's putting all these notions and things into his head now, things that he probably didn't have to really think about before, because he was the secondary parent. But I mean, he's obviously embracing it. If he's doing all that stuff, he's on the forums and he's doing the research and everything. So I read that and it was like, wow, he's not giving himself enough credit, because like, this is work. This is like invisible labor that parents have to do, and usually it's the primary parent that's doing more of that invisible labor, and the secondary parent just sort of maybe absorbs whatever the primary tells them, or whatever the case may be. So
I think maybe, I don't know, maybe he just feels like, because he wasn't involved in the past, that he's just so behind that he'll never catch up or something. Because like he does say here, I told Joni I'd wait until they were older to really get into them, and they grew and grew behind my back. So to me, it's like he just like missed it all.
Mhm.
Yeah, to me, it's like he doesn't really even like know his daughters and who they are, and like he has a lot to catch up on.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure it can be really overwhelming to all of a sudden be thrust into that role, and there's nothing you can do about it, and you don't have anyone to really help you in that situation. You just kind of have to jump in with both feet and figure it out.
Yeah, I was reading it too as like, because the helper seemed like she didn't really want him to know everything, because didn't he make mention of that too? That like she was
Yeah.
kind of holding some information so that, you know, he would feel like he needed to keep her around. So I kind of read it as like he's trying to like seek out more information on his own, because clearly she won't help, you know?
Yeah, probably. I mean, yeah, all of that. It's like she probably knows a lot of stuff that he does not know. And you know, it's like little secrets or little things that were between the girls in that household, and he was obviously excluded from because, you know, he doesn't, what does he know? Why does he care? Kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, she's like helping to raise them. You know, there's some sort of you know, daughter-like relationships to her too.
Mhm.
He says it makes me feel like some kind of colonist to have Esther around.
Esther, that's her name.
I watched the movie and it was interesting. They didn't have Esther in the movie at all.
No.
And they changed Joni's name
Yeah.
to Elizabeth.
That's right.
Really?
Yeah, which is weird. I don't know who made that. He was like, we're gonna keep this movie like really, really similar to the book, but we got to make it a little bit different. So we'll change Joni's name to Elizabeth.
Yeah,
Weird.
like that's all the other characters had the same names. The plot was like so spot on. Even a lot of
Huh.
like the dialogue was like copy and pasted
Mhm.
from the book. And they just like started off with like Elizabeth. And I was like, who the heck is Elizabeth?
It's really weird.
Yeah, I don't know. That was like the one thing. It's like you have to make something different. Change her name. Joni wasn't, I don't know, something enough.
I didn't watch the movie yet, so I don't know.
Natalie, I'm sitting on a bouncy ball, so you'll.
I could tell. Yeah.
I'm trying to keep my feet from swelling. The other chair I will not be able to walk if I sit in that too long. Chapter 5, I don't know what happens in this chapter, but I wrote down I love Scotty in this chapter. I can't remember what she does, but she does something really, really awesome and so hilarious. So I just had to write down I love Scotty. Did anyone else really love the character of Scotty?
It was something.
I didn't know what I was just thinking about. She was a big challenge.
I just love that she always had these funny shirts. She was always wearing these funny shirts, like the Mrs. Clooney one. That one was funny. And then just some of the other shirts that she would wear. And, you know, Matt, maybe prior to playing primary parent, didn't give a crap what kind of shirt she was wearing. But now, you know, they're seen together and he's actually paying attention to what she's wearing, and he realizes that she's just like, who where did she get these shirts from? You know, I can't remember exactly what they were, but every single time it was brought up what kind of shirt she was wearing, it was always like something very either abstract or ridiculous or funny.
Oh, she had to go to that house and apologize to Lonnie.
Oh, is that chapter 5? Yeah.
Mhm.
Apologize.
Yeah.
And then they found out. So yeah, she goes over and she apologizes to the girl, and then she finds out, or Matt finds out, that the mom was bullying her.
Locked her out of a party, poor
uh,
girl.
yeah.
Yeah.
And Matt got his, pun intended, just desserts just for them discovering that. I thought that was really funny.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she was an interesting character, and just like the innocence and just the juvenileness of, just like everything she hears and repeating it back, like her friends. Rima, I think was her name, when she was like, Rima's like dad watches porn, so Rima, brought some guys over and we wanted to see if they grew. It's like everything she repeats back and, doesn't fully, grasp her head around yet.
Yeah, I was like, you are 10.
Yeah, Scotty was definitely a fun character to read. Okay, let me see. I'm just like going through everything that I wrote down and we can talk about it. And then I have some questions either along the way, and then I have some supplemental questions at the end. Okay, yeah. Let's see. Okay, this was on page 49 of my book, but the quote starts, "She had just moved into my house. We have gorgeous softwood floors, but we also have flying cockroaches, cane spiders, termites, and centipedes that love these wooden floors and dark rafters as well." So I liked this paragraph because he obviously is living on this beautiful Hawaiian island, and he has this beautiful house that maybe, well, I don't know how he came to owning the house, but I guess that doesn't really matter. But he's talking about, these gorgeous wood floors and the rafters and everything. Then he turns it around and says, we also have these really terrible things that are sort of specific to the island of Hawaii, cane spiders, termites. I know termites are really bad on the island.
That scene later with the termites.
Yeah, and cockroaches as well. I mean, cockroaches are a problem pretty much anywhere you go, but I think islands get it a little bit worse because there's obviously less land that they're working with. And so, everyone, when people picture Hawaii, obviously this image of beauty and peace and paradise really comes to mind. But Matt does a really good job of telling us that maybe it's not all that it's cracked up to be, and that it's not all just beautiful tropical breezes and palm trees. Yeah, I said everyone has a paradise-esque view of Hawaii. Does this realistic paragraph change that at all? I mean, could you deal with all of that sort of craziness of flying cockroaches and termites?
We have those here. It's the cockroach part.
The New York.
When it gets warm, they fly.
And the household centipedes that eat the cockroaches with all the legs. I just had a
spider on my ceiling last night, so I don't know. It seems pretty typical.
Yeah, that's true. Depending on where you live, it's not so bad where I live, but we do get centipedes every once in a while, and I just do not fuck with centipedes. I really do not fuck with centipedes. Like, why do you have that many legs? It's gross. My parents had a real bad in Percival, and I lived in the basement for a while, and that was just like my biggest fear, was that something was gonna crawl over my face or my feet or something. Yeah. Oh gosh. The worst. So yeah, I mean, every
in the
place,
woods, all of that. Yeah, growing up in the woods, all of that comes inside your house. Like,
I'm sure
the giant spiders like on your pillow, and then you sleep on the couch for like a week.
Yeah.
God, I know. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I mean, I grew up in the woods too, and I don't know. I guess I shut down that part of my memory because I don't remember there being a lot of, but we did have mice. We did have a really bad mice problem. That I remember very specifically because my mom is deathly afraid of mice. And we just happened to live right next to like a whole mouse colony. that was fun. Let's see here. Let's keep going. Okay, so chapter 23. I said the whole chapter 23, it can't be that long, but I said, what would you do in this situation? But I didn't write down what the situation was. So maybe
right, let me
you can
find
help
it.
us out. Chapter 23. What
Sorry.
big event happens in 23?
Okay, let's see. 23. Right before part 3. Oh, it's starting with, do you think he just deserves a chance to say goodbye? Matt's asking Alex that. And he's summarizing his deposition. And then he says, I'd like you to come to Kauai with me and Scotty. Yeah, so he's like confiding in Alex about the cheating and stuff. And he calls the realtor. Yeah, so it's just setting up that visit.
It's setting up for him to go to
Yeah,
island to find
Yeah.
The secret lover.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I found that to be a really, really tricky situation, you know, like you've got your your wife who could, is this after they removed her from the oxygen and she was
The
on her
doctor
own?
says he tells me he needs to abide by the will now that the permanent coma assessment has been made. Tomorrow it has to be done. But it's okay. He says you can go, you have time.
Okay.
Pack my bags and hope he's right.
Yeah, so a little bit of a risky maneuver there, you know, it's very possible that he could be over island and then all of a sudden she's no longer alive, and that would be probably soul crushing for everyone involved. So a little bit of a risky move there, but he decided that this is what he needs to do to get some sort of revenge or closure or whatever. But yeah, I just found that situation to be very tricky. I mean, what would you guys do in that situation?
Well, I also found it odd that he wanted to tell like everybody in person, because didn't he run into someone along the way of his telling that she was like, I can tell people for you. And he was like, no, I need to do it. So like specifically with the other man, like he made it seem like from his point of narration that like he was doing it for Joni and him, but like I could definitely tell like a part of him was like, no, I want to see his face, and that's point of pride and closure. Yeah,
ulterior motives.
definitely.
He did say that later on, that like when it was happening, that was the point, that he wanted to see his face. So
Yeah.
He did admit that.
Yeah. So some things that he was not being forthright with when he was thinking he was going to go over island to do his due diligence and make sure that every single person that was important in Joni's life got a personal delivery, that she wasn't going to be living for too much longer. But yeah, definitely I could tell the ulterior motives were there as well. You know, he has got a little bit of a petty side, a lot of a petty side. It's definitely a pettiness to him. I just thought, like, you know, what an interesting situation to find yourself in. How do you even navigate that? It's just so tricky. You think that you really, really love somebody, and it turns out that they might not have loved you all along. And how do you navigate that? Okay, so we already talked about the missionary thing. Natalie, we were talking about why we thought that George Clooney was maybe cast as a native Hawaiian, even though he's not. And he's not native at all, but we were thinking that maybe it has something to do with the fact that his ancestors were missionaries, and he says that on page 157 of my book. And he talks about our missionary ancestors came to the islands. So it's possible that, you know, he has more European qualities because he's not necessarily Polynesian, but he is a native Hawaiian because his ancestors came to the island back in the 1840s. I think that was he said that we've owned land since the 1840s. So I did a little research on this, on land ownership in Hawaii. And so he says 1840, we've owned land since 1840. In 1848, the Kings, which I'm assuming means the last name Kings, or maybe it refers to actual monarch kings. And then there were the high chiefs and the headman of a land division. Those are called Ali'i and Konohiki. In 1848, they all convened and they split up the land on all the Hawaiians. This was called the Great Mahele. I think I'm saying that, hopefully I'm saying that correctly. Mahele. So it was like this, obviously there's a lot of stuff that happens before 1848, you know, with Polynesian voyagers coming to the island and figuring out how to not colonize, that's not the correct term, but how to live on this island when you've got different people and different hierarchies. So 1848, these three groups of people came together to divide up the Hawaiian land. I'm not quite sure how they did that, but it's called the Great Mahele. And that was the sort of turning point in land ownership for Hawaii, and it set the precedent for all of land ownership rights up until present day. So that was a really big moment in history. And so that checks out with what he's saying, that his family has owned land since 1840. That the Kings, if that's his ancestors, helped divide up that land, and they got a good chunk of it from that. So that was interesting. I think the Hawaiian land ownership was always interesting to me because it's just so different than anywhere else in the country, and maybe even perhaps the world, that they've managed to keep it in the family, sort of, so to speak. They really don't allow outsiders to own land. You have to be direct ancestors of native Hawaiians, whether that be Polynesian Hawaiians or missionary Hawaiians. I think that is, you can be both. Okay, let's move on to when he meets Matt, or when he meets Brian. Matt meets Brian, and that's like a whole thing. That was like, obviously everyone was jonesing to get to that point, because you just have no idea how Matt is going to react. What is he going to do? What is Alex going to do? What is Scotty going to do? And ultimately, what is Sid going to do? We haven't even talked about Sid yet, but he actually plays a really big part in this story. So let's see. Chapter 30, Matt discovers Brian is married with two boys who are similar in age to Scotty and Alex. I thought that was a really interesting little tidbit. Not only is he married, happily married, but he has two boys. And I remember reading earlier in the book that Alex, when she was arguing with Scotty about something, had brought up that Joni had wished that Scotty was a boy. That's why they named her Scotty, because Scott is a boy's name. She wanted a boy. She got Scotty, so she named her Scotty instead. So obviously there's a little bit of maybe a missed opportunity with Joni meeting Brian. She sees that he has 2 boys, and oh, she's always wanted boys. And you know, I had some questions like, do you think Joni was involved with the boys, or maybe one day hope to be? And do you think she was drawn to Brian because of this?
I don't even remember. How did they meet, her and Brian?
At a
At a
party.
Super Bowl party
Yeah, at a Super Bowl party, you're right.
through friends.
Which was funny. It sounded like it was in the afternoon because she came home in the evening. And I just was thinking about the time difference.
Yeah, they even got that
like-
part down.
Watching the Super Bowl would be weird. Yeah.
Yeah, and Hawaiian time.
Yeah.
We're watching it at like 8 p.m. at night. They're watching it at maybe 3 or 4 or something like that. Yeah, that's a good point. Paying attention to the little details. But yeah, I mean, do you think Joni ever met his boys?
I wouldn't think so, if just by the way Brian saw their relationship.
Yeah. Yeah, probably not. She
But maybe
was just a
Joni
pawn.
wished.
I mean, Joni definitely seemed like she wanted more. Like she seemed like she did want a divorce and to marry him, even if that's not what Brian wanted.
Yeah, I think that one day she hoped to be, you know, a part of his life and a part of his boy's life, so that she could get a taste of what it was like to have a boy. Because, you know, I mean, if you wanted a boy and you got a girl, then perhaps
Two girls.
you just kind of wish and you kind of think like, what would life be like if I had a boy, you know? So, and maybe she was drawn to Brian because of this, you know. Oh, I have 2 boys. Oh, you do? Oh, I wish I had a boy. You know, I thought Scotty was going to be a boy and she was just another girl.
Yeah, I mean, we don't really know what they talked about at the party or, you know, how that came about. So,
No idea.
yeah.
No idea. We only know Matt's point of view. But I was kind of interested in that. Like, huh, okay. She has 2 girls, he has 2 boys. She wanted Scotty to be a boy. Did that have something to do with her wanting to be with him? Maybe, maybe not, but something to think about. And then we get to the big reveal, which is in chapter 33. Matt finds out Brian had never loved Joni and he was using her to get the Holitzer sale. I didn't really see that coming, that she was just a pawn in his scheme to be a part of this land sale. I wrote down, what a douche. And Joni never knew that she was just a pawn. So that was sort of really heartbreaking to read, is like, you know, this woman thinks that she was going to divorce her husband, who clearly loves her so much. Like he loves her so much, and maybe he loves her, he realizes what he had and now he can't have it, and he's starting to be a little more appreciative of her and realize what he had and what he's leaving behind, essentially. And you know, and Joni, her poor Joni, she was just a pawn in this whole scheme for Brian to be a part of this sale. That's so sad. Anyone else want to add to that?
It seems like also that was like a big shift in Matt's thoughts and feelings about Joni at the time too. Because I mean, I guess personally, I would probably be like, well, you know, he seemed overly compassionate, but like maybe forcing himself to be when he could be extra petty, as we discussed his tendencies. But I think at that time, then it switched from like, oh shit, like I don't hate her, like I love her, and I feel so sad for her. You know?
Yeah, definitely sort of a more of a pity type attitude, like, oh, Joni, like you didn't see this coming, you know, like, and now it's too late. I can't tell you that this is what is really going on, and you would have divorced me for this man, you know, and he would have just thrown you to the side the moment that sale happened. And it was alluded so much during the novel that, you know, she was really pushing for him to accept the Holitzer sale, and he just couldn't figure out why, like, why do you care so much, you know, like you don't really have a stake in the claim. I mean, you're married to me, and whatever money I get, you get too, so maybe that's a part of it. But to like really be honing in on the Holitzer sale, he just never really understood why. And then, you know, he connects the dots in chapter 33, and he's just like, oh, Joni, how could you be so naive, you know? And that just brings a whole other
Also maybe
dynamic.
classic Joni, like being so short-sighted.
Yeah.
And her risky behaviors. Or her
It's
career.
true. Yeah, it's true. I mean, you know, a thrill seeker, just sort of wanting the next best thing. It just got the best of her. And then I wrote, Matt kissing Julie was hilarious. I thought that was really funny.
Yeah.
It was just like a last little fuck you, just like taking Julie and kissing her and leaving.
I like how later he was like, I hope that's not the last time, or like he did say he hoped, but like that could be the last time that he kissed someone and they kissed him back. And I was like,
Yeah. I thought that was really, I didn't know I mean, obviously I didn't think he was gonna do that, but after thinking about it, I was like, yeah, you know what? At the end of the day, Matt King is still just really petty dude. So makes sense that he would do that. Just out of spite, right in front of Brian.
I mean, if that's all he's gonna do.
Yeah, I mean, he knew that Brian loved his wife, and you know, like they were solid, nothing was gonna happen with them, but he was just like, yeah, I'm just gonna kiss her just to make you upset. I don't know what else to do. Okay, what did I say? Oh, there's a quote that I really liked on page 229. But now I find myself not wanting to give it up. My girls and I are Hawaiian, and this land is ours. And underneath I said, now I can see why maybe they cast George Clooney for the part. I don't know why I said that, but you know, I guess I just like can imagine George Clooney saying something very introspective like that. In his classic.
Oh, and that's where it says, even though we don't look Hawaiian, even though our constant recombining has erased the evidence of our ethnicity, sharpening our flat faces, straightening our kinky hair, even though we act like, what are those, haoles?
Yeah, I think it's Howl.
Howls? Anyway, it says, my
Everything is-
girls and I are Hawaiian and this land is ours.
Okay, so that makes sense why maybe they cast him for the role then. And I think I did kind of realize that later on. How person who is not a native Hawaiian, especially a white person. That's what howl means. And then Wahine, I think Wahine is a native Hawaiian. Maori or Polynesian person. So those are the two. You're either a howl or you're a Wahine when you're on the island.
My cousins actually grew up on Hawaii, and yeah, it was like a thing there.
What
they didn't, you know, that the Hawaiians didn't really like accept them.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, That's probably
But
true.
that's
Like,
the only place they knew, so.
Natalie, I don't probably remember my dad's speech at my wedding last year. He had the
Mhm.
he had the conch shell and he had the
Oh yeah, the conch shell. He's so
I
funny.
was so upset with him because he didn't provide any context at all. It's like, okay, we're just a bunch of white people that just appropriated native Hawaiian culture. And, you know, like I'm marrying this black man and he's got a black family and they're all just kind of like, what are these white people doing? See, he didn't provide any context. Like my grandparents lived in Hawaii. They lived in Hawaii for like almost 40 years. My dad, he grew up, well, he didn't grow up in Hawaii, but he spent a lot of time in Hawaii. He was farming, he was woofing, he was doing all this stuff. Well, like we have my father's side of the family has serious ties to Hawaii, and he was supposed to say that at the very beginning to set the tone and to be like, this is what happens. But no, he didn't say any of that. He just like goes into like talking in native Hawaiian. He blows his little conch shell and he's got these Hawaiian beads around his neck. And I almost like, oh man, I really kind of regret not going to the microphone, just being like, for the record. My grandparents they lived in Hawaii for a really, really long time. My parents, my mom or my dad's side of the family, we lived there for a really long time. Okay. We're not just saying this stuff to say it.
Yeah, now the speech makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, right. I feel like I need to just call everyone individually and be like, do you remember that speech? Well, let me just tell you that we weren't appropriating. I promise we weren't appropriating.
No, you need to go see them.
Just a PS in your thank you notes. Like,
It was not cultural appropriation. Do not tell anyone else that we were just, yeah. I mean, it was a great speech, but and he even wrote it down, like he had his notes and he said, yeah, I had it in my notes that I was going to explain this whole thing. But of course, you know, you get up to the podium and everything just escapes your brain. So yeah, it was just, I remember looking around the room and being like, oh my God, everyone just thinks that my dad is just
wacky.
out of the blue, just wanted to talk about Hawaiian shit. That was fun. Well, I'm glad you remember that. That was good. Let's see. Oh yeah. Did anyone cry during this book towards the end? Anyone cry? Or like almost cry?
There was a thought I had that I was like, I bet some people would cry here.
I got sad when it was like the part where they were like all kind of like trying to explain to Scotty what was happening.
Yeah.
Like a few different times, and like every time that happened, I was like, oh, poor kid. Like she's just doing the best she can, you know. And she's like, I know, but they're like, she doesn't really know though.
Yeah. I said this scene on page 239. I said this scene wrecked me. Poor Scotty. I think it was her saying goodbye, but I'm not really sure. But yeah, I definitely I cried a tiny little bit. I was just like, God, it's so hard for this little girl. She's so innocent and yet grown up at the same time. And she, you know, she wants to be grown up so bad, but at the end of the day, she's still just a little kid. And this is like such an adult situation for her to be in. It's almost too much to handle. So I don't know, I kind of like that all just came to me. I was like, oh my God, like poor Scotty. This is
yeah, I feel like wasn't there like some part where like Matt said like she, you know, she needs her mom right now, or she needed her mom. That was when I was like, oh God.
Yeah.
And she won't.
Yeah. I know, gosh. I don't know, maybe it's just the motherly instincts in me, but I was like, yeah, damn, that is just a really, really sad situation.
With your little girl coming next month.
Woo. Next month. Yay. I always tell Garrison, I'm like, she's gonna really, really like me until she's about maybe like 10, 11 years old, and then she's just gonna hate me. Because that's what happens, right? Like, you know, your little girl grows up in those teenage years, mother-daughter relationships are just so challenging. And I'm like, I don't know how to prevent that from happening. I think it's going to happen. You're not going to get along for a good amount of time. I don't know.
I don't know. My friend Melissa has a 13-year-old and they get along pretty well. They've only had like 2 fights, but otherwise, I was gonna call her a little girl. Her teenager says her mom is her best friend.
Okay.
So,
Well, I mean, I'm gonna
there's hope.
try. I'm
Yeah.
certainly gonna try, but I'm probably gonna fail. I don't know.
I don't think it has to be that way, but if it does happen, you know they'll come back.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it can come in phases, and you know,
I know.
Yeah, my
back
cousin's
and
just
forth.
now exiting his withdrawal phase, teenage phase. He's like 17, so you know.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely had that phase with my mom where it was just like everything was just and it's still kind of like that. But it's better. It's better since I've left the house. We have a great relationship as long as we are not living under the same roof. That's all I gotta say.
I get that.
Yeah. And the last note that I had was page 269. We find out that Sid called Julie to confess Brian's sins. Yeah, that was that. You know, Sid was sort of a background character for most of the book, and you're like, what role is this kid playing? You know, other than just being Alex's support person, so to speak. Weren't they in a relationship? Doesn't really, I think he said that he was trying, but you know, that she was just looking at him as a sort of support person for her during her rehab process, I suppose. So did anyone else find that like very surprising to learn about that? It was actually Sid who told Julie, and Julie came to the hospital.
It was kind of like she had similar motivations to Matt, where she just wanted to see. I don't know. But I wasn't surprised that Sid called because of his story.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. So him and his mom sort of were estranged, right?
Yeah, because his dad assaulted his friend,
Right.
and then his mom didn't believe him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a very tricky situation with him as well. And so he ends up playing a really, really, really big part in that book. And Matt, you know, obviously grows to like him and starts treating him like a bit of a son, and vice versa, a father figure. So it has a happy ending for sure. It's happy-ish ending. Like things are gonna be okay in the King household.
Yeah, and it was also like he didn't seem like Matt had a lot of people to talk to, since he was kind of confiding in Alex about a lot of things. So Sid kind of helped with that too in some ways, where it was like, well, I shouldn't be talking to my own child, and even though this kid's young, you know, he's been through it and like he can relate. I liked those parts where he was like talking to him and he'd just be like, dang bro, or whatever he said. I don't know, you know, but it was funny.
Yeah, like the part where he well, I mean, yeah, I think he just saw him as a masculine figure that he could confide to in a very female dominated world that he was living in at the time. So Sid was definitely bringing some masculine energy. I mean, almost to the point where Sid got punched at his in-law.
Father-in-laws.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
So
that
it's
guy
just-
seemed like a nightmare.
Yeah,
Sheesh.
totally. It's always the in-laws, man. The in-laws are just, they're just a little bit crazy. I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Okay, well, that was like sort of the book in a nutshell. We went through all of it.
It was a pretty quick read.
Mhm.
Yeah, it was breezy but heavy at times. And short chapters, which I always appreciate short chapters.
That
And
too.
you know, just really kept the ball rolling with everything that was going on. It didn't ever really seem too slow for me at times. You know, it was just things were happening and he needed to figure out what to do with his land, he needed to figure out what to do with his wife, he needed to figure out what to do with his wife's lover, and those three in conjunction really just pushed the narrative forward.
And skipping the details. Like we don't know if they were there when she died, like because they just skipped that part.
Right. Yeah.
Like 2 days later.
But I mean, like, yeah, maybe that just wasn't the most important thing. They had said their goodbyes and
Yeah.
and then they went and scattered her ashes, and that was a cute little scene there at the very end. And they do that in the movie too, right? They go out in the kayak and they spread the ashes, and there's like a party boat nearby or whatever.
In the movie, there wasn't the party boat, but they went in the kayak and they spread the ashes and put the leis out in the water.
Okay, so I have just a couple of supplemental questions. I think these were questions that were in the back of the book, but I don't have my book. I just found them on the internet and it said something like, these are found in the book. So that's probably where these questions came from. Do you think it was irresponsible of Matt to include his kids on the quest to find Joni's lover? Even though Scotty was sort of unaware of the exact reason, she was just like, oh, we're going to find Joni's friend. But obviously Sid and Alex were in the know. They knew exactly what was going down, and Matt decided to involve them on this quest. Do you think that was responsible parenting or what?
Well, he was new to it.
New to
Yeah, he's
parenting?
learning to be
New to
responsible.
parenting.
Yeah, probably. He just really, you know, why
And
not?
it's-
Why not bring my kids?
He didn't have anyone else to support him through it, and he needed something. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I don't know if he really
Yeah,
had
it's kind of interesting for like what a big community he seemed to have. He didn't really seem to have much in the way of raising children support
Right.
other than Jody and the helper
Mm-hmm.
and boarding school.
Well, it seemed like a lot of like their community was also like Joni's community. Like a lot of her friends and you know, friends like because of Joni. So it was interesting that he brought his daughters along on this quest.
Yeah. Well, he couldn't really tell anybody. You know, he had to keep that aspect a secret. The only people who knew were the friends that he went to see after Alex told him that she was cheating on him. He knew exactly where to go. He went down the street to his friend's house, or Joni's friend's house, and they were like, this guy?
And they weren't really supporting him, so
Yeah.
Right.
And I mean, from the start, like Alex was supporting him. Like she's the one who was like defending her dad, like when her mom was alive and they were having the arguments about it. You know, she was the one that, you know, was helping to try to find out information and everything. So she was really team dad.
Mm-hmm.
I think it would have been weird if he didn't involve them, just because I think that was like the formation of their new family. Like it was like
Yeah.
Yeah. This is just how it is now. Like
like they're together.
I don't have a choice. You're my kids, and I'm your only parent now. And so this is just, we're gonna figure this out together, whether or not it's the best decision or not. Don't really know, but we're just gonna do it. So yeah, I think that's a good approach to it. It wasn't necessarily irresponsible, it was just new, and he needed somebody in his corner, essentially.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, and what was unique about the Hawaiian setting, and how did it enhance the story for you? First of all, who's been to Hawaii?
We've
But
all
I
been
was
to
one.
Hawaii.
I physically, my soul, my body has been there. I was 1 year old at the time, so I do not remember, but I have been there.
Aw.
I was 1 year old. I have been to Hawaii. I just don't remember it. So, hand half raised. So, with your personal Hawaiian experience, how did it enhance the story for you?
I mean, to me, I could just like picture, I could fill in the holes, like when they're like suddenly on the big island. Like I remembered like it was an hour flight, and like, at least to the side of the island I went to, and just kind of what it looked like. And I guess, I don't know, because I stayed with my friends who lived there. I guess I had already kind of experienced living there versus staying at a hotel. So like just going to the beach and hanging out and whatever. I don't know. That's how it enhanced it for me, I guess.
Okay.
It was interesting for me because like my experience of Hawaii was like I went to Oahu, and it was the more like touristy, like commercial, staying on this developed land and like real estate. So I really enjoyed reading and just hearing how, they're trying to keep the land like within the Hawaiian community, and just, that those deep roots and passion, you know, seeing how you can just like easily develop land and it changes, and it's a lot different from, this really beautiful like virgin lands.
Yeah. Which I guess leads me to a question that just came off the top of my mind. Did you guys think that he was going to sell the land, or did you know, like maybe in your heart of hearts, that he was gonna keep it and decide not to develop it? Because they were saying like, oh, we wanted to put strip malls in there, someone wanted to put in a Walmart or Target or whatever.
Yeah.
Did that surprise anybody by his decision to just keep the land and not give it away?
I was hoping he was going to keep it.
Yeah.
I didn't really know if it was an option to keep it. So when it came up, I was like, oh, phew.
Yeah. In the movie, that's a really kind of profound moment. They actually they didn't do this in the book, but they actually all go out, I think the three of them, to look at the land.
Mm.
And it's just like, it's this beautiful, untouched piece of land. It's, I can't really describe it other than untouched Hawaiian island land. And they all go out there, and he looks at his girls, and he's just like, I can't sell this. Like, this is who I am. This is where I come from. This land belongs to me. It belongs to them. We're a part of this land. And so it kind of is like this aha, eureka moment for him, where he decides that it's not in the cards for him to sell it. It doesn't matter what his family thinks. Obviously his family want him to get the money from the land and distribute it to all of his cousins and everything. They all have sort of a financial stake in the claim, but the land belongs to him. It's his land. So I obviously wanted him to keep the land and not sell it. So that was a nice little wrap up moment.
I was wondering because they kept saying also like if they don't do anything now, in 7 years, like the trust dissolves or something, what do you think that meant? Like, what would happen to the land after 7 years if they don't sell?
I don't know. Maybe Adina can find that reference.
Let's see, 7.
That must be, ebooks are really great for that particular reason. Like you can just instantly reference stuff.
I don't see anything related to the word 7.
Maybe look for trust.
There's one, after the Supreme Court upheld the trust distribution structure, making me the largest shareholder. I just wanted to hide.
Yeah, I
Uh,
remember that's right at the very beginning of the book.
Let's see. What's next? I get about 1/8 of the trust, whereas the others get 1/24. I rarely touch the money we've made off the trust. Yeah, I don't know.
Well.
Oh, wait, here.
Years.
My father died last year, marking the termination and dissolution of the trust, and now land rich and cash poor, we the beneficiaries are selling off our portfolio to someone. I don't know who yet. Yeah, so it was already terminated. So I guess that's why I didn't know like what the next possible steps were, because it sounded pretty like set that they had to sell it, I guess.
Yeah, like the trust was ending.
Yeah.
What is a trust?
It's like what you make, like, it's how trust funds, you know?
Yeah, well, I've heard the term like trust fund
Hereditary
baby.
money, like my parents made a trust or whatever, and so like essentially, so someone, and again, I don't know that much about it, but someone can be in charge of the trust, so it's not them, so they can have control over the money to like use it for medical bills or to distribute.
Usually they like release it at like a certain age when you're at a certain age.
Yeah.
Okay. So the trust.
It's not tied to you like dying necessarily. It could be tied to just something else.
Gotcha. Okay.
As far as I understand.
In this case, it was dissolved.
Yeah, that's what it said.
I guess if this is all, then like Matt, he just inherits the lands. He just has the inheritance of it.
And that's why he says land rich and
Cash
whatever.
poor or something.
Cash poor, yeah.
Land rich, cash poor. Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Because I mean, if you hold on to the land, you're not getting any money from it. The only way you would make money is if you sold the land you sold the land to some developer and they developed on it. So,
or use it in some other way, which is what I assume they're gonna try to do.
Yeah, I don't know. I thought
some
maybe
other way.
they were gonna. Did they allude to something about that in the movie? Like they're gonna turn it to some park or some recreational. I don't know.
Well, he said the Queen wanted a hospital for Native Hawaiians, and he was like, "But I don't need to do that. There are already those."
We've had enough of those.
I don't know. It's like a new day. They can figure it out.
Exactly. And the 3 of them will figure it out together.
4 was Sid.
Yeah, 4 was Sid. I feel like Sid's probably gonna be a
This believe soon.
an important person in the King household moving forward.
Where does he even live? Who knows?
I don't know.
Well, at the end, wasn't Sid
He went back
was
to his
reunited
mom?
with his mother? Yeah, I think
Yeah,
Matt
because he called the mom because he said,
Mm-hmm.
"Oh, I can do that," because Sid called Julie.
Yeah,
like
they didn't show that in the movie, but yeah, that was in the book.
Do you think Sid lives on like the same island that they live on though? Like he could live anywhere.
He
It
must
seems
live
so
there
because it
though,
seems like
because I
that's
think
how like him and Alex like met.
Yeah.
They went to school because she's on the other island for boarding school.
And they met on the main Oahu, you think?
yeah.
I'd buy that.
I don't know. It's been a while since I read it, so those little details escape me.
Sarah, which island did you go to?
I went to Maui.
Mm.
And a lot of people it was like for a wedding, but a lot of people that came in said they also spent time on Kauai. But I mean, it was fine for a little summary of Hawaii because there's the resort side and then there's also the jungly side.
Mm.
So that's where like the road to Hana is, and you go all around. It was cool.
I'm sure you guys are reading about the fires that are happening there right now in Maui. It's really sad.
Really?
Well, there's a whole side that's like super dry.
Yeah, it's
And-
the western side of the island. And like a whole town has been. It's really sad, actually.
Hmm.
Because I mean, you don't associate Hawaii with being dry and having problems with rain, but there hasn't been a lot of rain on this particular part of the island, or this is just the part of the island that
side.
was caught on fire. But yeah, it's really bad.
Mm.
I think I'm gonna try and find something like a donation and donate a little bit of money, because that sounds really, really scary.
Wow, I didn't know about this.
Did you go to Lahaina, Sarah? I think it's a town on the western part of the island.
Probably. Let me look. Yeah, because we just did like a whole loop around everything. Oh yeah, that's like the only other town, I feel like.
Yeah. Anyways, that's happening, or it did happen. I think maybe the fire's over. Like people are having to just jump in the water to escape the fire.
Wow. Yeah, that's like one of the big touristy parts
Mhm.
on that side. Wow. Well, I wanted to say in summary of the book, I felt like, that's my dog in the background, it was interesting how much coming and going and like just other side plots were happening, because I feel like that was such an interesting just like metaphor of life and dealing with experiences like that too. Like there is always stuff just like going on around you, and that's just like a thing you have to deal with, and so I guess maybe having it being in the setting in Hawaii made it even more I don't know, I don't want to say easy to read, but just more, I guess, maybe relatable in like all these familiar places he's going, all the things he's doing. Yeah, I don't know, but yeah, it was a real thinker for me.
It was, because for me, it was, you know, what would you do in this situation? It's just such a unique situation, and the author thinks this stemmed from a short story that she wrote about, you know, she just had this idea, like, what if your partner is all of a sudden in a coma and you learn something about them that that totally changes how you feel about the person, you know, how would you navigate that? So that was interesting, very unique situation to find yourself in. And yeah, I really like this book. It maybe maybe one of my favorites that we've read in the book club so far, just because it was so readable, so digestible, but at the same time super heavy. And like the emotions sort of took a front row. You have Matt King, who's sort of he's sort of disillusioned and petty, and but at the same time very loving and caring. And it's just funny to listen to his inner dialogue because it's super relatable. You know, you think some of the things that happen to Matt, you have to agree with, like, yeah, that is like some of the stuff that Scotty does, some of the stuff that his in-laws do, and everyone's just sort of like tiptoeing on eggshells around him, and he just wants to move on with his life, essentially. Anyone else have any closing thoughts, final thoughts about how they felt about the book?
Well, just related to like it being real life, I liked how he'd be like, I have to be focusing on like this terrible thing. I don't have time to talk to Sid. And then like 2 seconds later, he's like, all right, what's going on with you, Sid?
Yeah, exactly. Like he said something and you know he doesn't mean it. He's just saying it to say it. And that's sort of very human.
I thought that was funny. Because I was like, I don't think I'd ever actually think that thought. Like, I can't think about something else. But it's funny that he did. Yeah.
Natalie, any remarks? How you felt about the book?
Yeah, I liked it. I thought it was a really easy, good read. Definitely made you think a lot. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I asked Josh what would he do if he was in this situation. He would not tell my lover.
Is that what he said?
He was like, no, not tell your lover.
Sure, Josh.
But then he would have just stayed mad at you instead of felt sorry for you.
Yeah.
Which is a better feeling for your husband to have when you're dying.
Yeah. What's worse?
I don't know.
What's worse? Feeling anger towards you or feeling pity and yeah, they're both pretty awful feelings to have towards somebody.
Well, she didn't know, so I guess that's good.
She'll never know. She'll never
Nope.
know.
Well, no.
That's the kicker. That added a completely different facet to the story, is that you read it and you're like, wait a second, she's never gonna know this. Shit.
Yep.
She thought they were gonna prance off into La La Land on the island and go see all the construction for this Pulitzer sale, and
Oh gosh.
you know, she was gonna adopt
That's so
those two
fast.
boys or whatever the case. So yeah. Nope.
Yeah. I thought that the book was really like sweet at the end, that despite this horrible situation that's going on, kind of like ended in closure, like they're all gonna be okay.
Yeah.
Then the movie like ended that way too. I thought that was really sweet for this dad, like taking on 2 new daughters, you know,
Yeah.
that they'll
I thought that
be
way
okay in
too.
this new chapter.
they're gonna be okay. There's gonna be a lot of grieving involved, but they're gonna be okay. Yeah,
Yeah, I really liked it, the book.
good. I'm glad. Cool. Okay. So that's that. That's the end of July's book club. Has anyone picked up August's book yet?
What
Put
did
a
you
request in at the library. I didn't read what it was about though.
With I call him Timothy Shamalama Ding Dong. Timothy Chalamet is in
I
it.
saw it. I think the next one there's a movie too, right?
Yep. It came out a couple of years ago with Timothy Chalamet and Armie Hammer, which if you know anything about Armie Hammer, you know that there's a lot of controversy surrounding him, but I think the movie came out before the controversy presented itself.
I did not look up this book yet, so.
I can read you the description. Just hold on. I rolled up my dress, so it's getting really hot.
Call Me by Your Name, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I found it
Where is it?
at the library.
Oh no, where is it? There it is.
Here we go. This might be an audio book this time because there are so many copies available.
Okay, great. So, Call Me by Your Name. This is what mine looks like. Call Me by Your Name is the story of a sudden and powerful romance that blossoms between an adolescent boy and a summer guest at his parents' cliffside mansion on the Italian Riviera. Each is unprepared for the consequences of their attraction when, during the restless summer weeks, unrelenting currents of obsession, fascination, and desire intensify their passion and test the charged ground between them. Recklessly, the two verge toward the one thing they both fear may never truly find again: total intimacy. So you read this and you're like, oh, the summer guest, that must be a girl. It's not, it's a boy. It's a man. A much older man.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Adolescent boy and a summer. See, it says summer guest. It doesn't say.
Summer
It is
guest.
a- it is a man.
All right.
So, a little bit of some LGBTQ literature. Guess I should have had this one for June, huh?
Oh, well, it's okay.
What was June? On the Road. Okay, well, there's a little. Were there any homosexual tendencies in that book? I don't know. I don't think so.
I'm only thinking of The Road right now. What was on the road? Oh, no.
We went to California and Colorado.
Oh, yeah.
On the road, not the
Mexico.
road.
Yeah. Nah, that,
No, that was cannibalism. No
yeah.
homosexuality in that book.
On the Road had whatever. They were doing whatever they wanted. So I feel
Yeah.
like, yeah.
Okay.
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 Cool.
Well, that's that.
So we may or
Okay.
may not have book club again, right?
Well, okay, so if my due date's the September 9th, I would hopefully try and figure out a date to do book club before then. Obviously, I'm not gonna be doing a Zoom call in the like week or two after a baby is here. So if the old adage goes that your first child is usually late, then I will try and maybe do something at the end of the month or at the very, very beginning of September. That way I know we can get it in. And then after that, I have no idea. I really don't. Like I said, I'd like to continue it because I like the chance to do something that is completely separate from taking care of a child, but you know, this is our first crack at it. We have no idea how she's gonna be, or how Garrison's gonna do, or how I'm gonna do, and so, yeah, but I hope to, at some point, if I do have to pause, come back to it and come back to this space and continue doing this, because it is very nice to have something to look forward to. I even had a meeting tonight that I said I couldn't attend because I really wanted to do this instead. They're like, do you think you can attend this meeting tonight? And I said, no, I'm not going to. I'm not gonna tell you
Aw.
why. Definitely not as important as this meeting, but I won't be there, so.
Well,
We'll take all the time you need. We'll still be
Yeah,
here when
we'll
you're
be
ready.
here.
Thank you, I
So-
appreciate that. Yeah, I'll just let you know what I decide to do. We shall see, and I'll keep you guys posted on her arrival into
Sounds
the.
good. Hope everything goes well, and yeah, and then maybe we get to do one more.
Yeah, I would like to do the book club for this, because it is a summer read, and I think it would be nice to finish off. And if we do it for the August one, then it'll be a full year that we've done this book club.
Wow.
We had our September.
A year now? Wow. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
Wow.
That's gone
September
by
was
really
our first
quickly.
one with the Joy Luck Club, so it'll be a
A
complete
year.
year
Wow.
of reading 12 books.
Great. That went by really quickly.
I know,
Yeah.
right?
Did not realize it was a year. Wow.
Thanks for sticking with me through all of this. It's been super, super fun.
It's been fun, so I appreciate it. All the work you've done.
Okay, well, I think that'll be it for the day or the night. And I will see you guys hopefully soon. I'll let you guys know what I decide to do, but I think it should be probably do something at the end of this month or the very beginning of September.
Sounds good.
Sounds
All right.
perfect.
Y'all have a good night. Thank you.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.